Hello, and welcome to this new edition of the France 24 interview. We're here in Egypt, where over the past 2 weekends, voters were called to the polls in a referendum on the country's new constitution. Both the law-writing process and this referendum have deeply divided the country between, on the one hand, the president, Mohamed Morsi, who hails from the Muslim Brotherhood and his Islamist allies, and on the other, several different political groups and political parties with secularists, liberals, church representatives, and even former regime figures. My guest today is one of the main opposition figures. He at the head of the Constitution Party, a member of the National Salvation Front, the main opposition coalition. He is also, of course, famous for being a former director of the International Atomic Energy Agency and a Nobel Peace Prize winner. Mr. Mohamed El Baradei, thank you for having us here in your home. Now, the Freedom and Justice Party, the political branch of the Muslim Brotherhood, is saying the yes came out on top in this referendum. Do you believe a majority of Egyptians are in favor of this new constitution?
Yeah, I think the outcome would be clearly yes. The indication would be like 60-36, around this figure. So almost 2/3, 1/3. The bad news, however, that the country is still deeply divided. The bad news, however, that we are going to have a constitution that's intrinsically illegitimate because it defies basic values and human rights and does not by any way can be called a democratic institution. The good news that the opposition is getting united, that people started to understand that Egypt's salvation is not just through religious slogans or replacing an authoritarian system by another authoritarian system wrapped around religion, that what people really want is basic needs. So, yes, there are bad news, but the good news that hopefully in the coming months, when we have parliamentary election, the opposition, liberals, Christians, everybody who is not part of this so-called Islamic project, hopefully we'll get a majority, and one of our main platform would be to change this shameful constitution.
Now, the National Salvation Front said on Sunday that it will appeal the official results unless a proper investigation into the claims of violations during this referendum was conducted. Are you going to appeal these results?
I think most likely we are going to appeal. There's a lot of reports about rigging the election, about major, manipulation of the process. I think also it could be appealed on the basis that it defies, some of the basic universal values like freedom of religion, freedom of expression, independence of the judiciary. So we are going to, I think, appeal it right, left, and center to make sure that we use all methods, legal, peaceful methods available to us. But in the meantime, we'll continue to reach out to the grassroots. I mean, one of the lessons we learned that the opposition need to reach to the grassroots, the people who are mostly illiterate in the countryside, and we need to make them understand that we have a project for them and we can cater for their basic needs, food on the table, healthcare, education.
Now, do you think that maybe the outcome of this referendum could have been different if the National Salvation Front, but the whole, all of the parties in the opposition had decided to launch their campaign before they did? You launched your campaign 2 days before the first round.
Well, the whole process has been rush, hush, hush, as you know, since the uprising a year and a half ago. Total mismanagement by the military, total mismanagement by the Brotherhood since they took power in June, and it was unexpected development. There was never clarity as when we are going to have a referendum, how the constitution is going to be drafted. The whole process had been a total chaos. So yes, we have been late, but it's not really entirely our fault.
And you knew it was coming, though. The Constituent Assembly had been working on this final draft for several months before the referendum.
But the president said he is not going to put a constitution to referendum unless there is a consensus. He also said he is going to change the Constituent Assembly to make sure that it is balanced. And he defaulted, on all his promises. So we could not really rely on. There was no clear roadmap, in other words. But probably it is our fault. But we should also understand that this is We are still going through the aftermath of 60 years of repression. Most of the parties, most of the opposition are a few months old, so we're still learning on the process.
Do you think maybe the political affiliation of the members of the Constituent Assembly, it was dominated by Islamists, is maybe just the result of the choice of voters in previous elections? They did vote for the Islamists, and so there's a majority of them in the Constituent Assembly.
They voted for them in peculiar circumstances, shortly after a revolution, when they have been working 80 years on the ground, while the opposition or everybody else has been yet scrambling to have a political party organized in a political process. So while they had 80 years old, linking with the majority of in the countryside, the opposition has been just about to start and organize itself in political parties. So they won majority, they were large majority, but it was very peculiar circumstances, much beyond their actual real power. And we have seen right now that their majority is shrinking from the first referendum a year and a half ago. I think they lost like 15% during that period. And that's why we are hoping if we continue united, organized, reaching the grassroots, we can win a majority in the parliament.
How do you intend to reach this grassroots? Did you, for example, over the past 2 weeks during your campaign, did you send volunteers or activists to these rural areas where you say the Muslim Brotherhood is very strong?
A lot of them. A lot of them has been foot soldiers, if you like. I mean, we understand you cannot just limit yourself to the urban areas. You need to go to the small villages, countryside. A lot of volunteers, a lot of youth who really did stage that uprising and who feel that it has been lost or stolen from them. I mean, they are very determined right now to correct the path of that uprising revolution. And they are we have millions of volunteers right now, and I think this is what we are going to use during the parliamentary election.
So the opposition managed to mobilize hundreds of thousands of people in the streets here in Cairo, outside the presidential palace, in Tahrir Square, but also in other cities. Yet President Morsi didn't back down. You're saying this was still the right way to go. This was the right strategy.
It's still the right way to go. Unfortunately, the country is divided, as you know, completely down the line between the educated middle class and the Islamists and people who are mostly illiterate in the countryside. And we need to reach out to this large majority in the countryside and make them in simple language and make them understand that it is not about slogans. It is not about so-called stability. It's about a clear-cut project, how to improve their slot, how to improve their life condition, how to make sure that they have food, they have education, they have health care. It is a challenge. You have to have a simple language to reach out to these people. We need to make sure that they also trust the political elite, so to speak. They didn't have that trust in the past because for 60 years, this political elite have not delivered for them. So there is also a question of lack of confidence in the so-called liberals and seculars. There's also a feeling that the so-called God-fearing people coming from the Islamists have a solution because they say we are coming with an Islamic project. But right now, I think they're losing big time because people now started to understand only in 6 months that religion slogans is not a solution. You need to have a clear-cut economic, social, political programs.
Now let's go back to the law-writing process. What exactly pushed members of the opposition to withdraw from the Constituent Assembly maybe just weeks before it was due to hand in its final draft?
Well, I think it was a major mistake for them to have went into the Constituent Assembly in the first place. For one, I asked everybody to boycott it because it was clearly tilted toward an Islamic or Islamist majority. Writing a constitution is not about who won a parliamentary election. Writing a constitution is about having all different views and representative of all different parts of society to be able to have a consensus constitution. That did not happen. So it was deformed from day one, and I was not surprised that they decided to withdraw at the end. Of course, they realized that they are being a tyranny of the majority during the assembly is roughshod some of the major clauses in that constitution. When you talk about just having freedom to observe 3 religion, but nobody else can have, the ability to have a place of worship. When you talk about putting journalists to jail for whatever they publish, when you talk about in the judiciary that is completely almost neutered under that constitution. So there's a lot of problems with that.
Don't you think you might have a chance to change this? A week ago, the High Authority of the Constituent Assembly invited you and other members of the National Salvation Front to discuss your objections, the objections you had against the final draft, in order to reach a consensus. Why did you refuse?
This was a ploy. I mean, they invited us to have a debate, a televised debate for a couple of hours. If we really want to have a serious process to write a democratic constitution, you need a new constituent assembly. You need at least a couple of months to work through it. It was a ploy, and we realized that we are not being dragged into whatever it is, a show. And we are, and I continue to say, I've said that today, we are ready to engage into a dialogue, but it has to be a serious dialogue with the intention to have a consensus constitution, to have a government of national unity. The problem right now is not just about the constitution. The problem is really a problem of governance.
That's all we have the time for. Thank you so much, Mr. Baradei, for having us here in your home. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more news on France 24.